Okay, okay. Are you ready? Yeah? Okay, good. Okay, so let's carry on. So, yesterday we had a kind of very introductory look at the idea of freedom in Buddhism and some of the background suttas for that. And today, surprise, surprise, we're going to carry on. And the way we're going to do that is I'm going to start off by looking a bit, first of all, at the Buddha's experience of awakening. Just very simply to see how he experienced the idea of freedom. So we're going to start from the very deepest end of freedom, the Buddha's understanding of it through his own awakening. And then after that I'm going to go back to the beginning and look at, from the very beginning of the path, what it means to gain freedom stage by stage, the various aspects of the path, and then taking it forward until we go all the way to awakening again. So we're going to do like a loop. That's kind of the idea here. How do we get rid of this bar up here? Wait, wrong here. Is that possible to get? I already clicked on the Word document. Click, click, click. Nothing happening here. Yesterday it disappeared. It wasn't there.
By right, it should disappear by its own.
What did you do? You did something? Okay.
Just
Double click on that one. Okay, good. Okay, thank you. Sometimes. Okay. So to do this, we're going to start off by looking at. This is part of the Vinaya Pitaka. So this is called the great chapter. This is part of what is known as the Khandakas in the Vinaya Pitaka. And the Khandakas has the life story of the Buddha as like a container. The Khandakas are a lot of the rules and regulations for the monastic that concern things like ordination ceremony and these kind of things. And the container for these rules and regulations is actually the story of the Buddha, the life story of the Buddha. And it starts off by talking about the awakening of the Buddha, and then it goes on to look at the various events that happen after the awakening and how that leads to the formation of the Sangha, etc., stage by stage. It's very interesting, and it's kind of a unique biography of the Buddha that you find in this part of the Vinaya. It's not really found anywhere else, and so it's interesting. The beginning part here is very similar to what we find also in the Udana. The Udana, one of the kind of well-loved parts of the Buddhist canon, part of the Khuddaka Nikaya, the short collection or the smaller collection of suttas. So that is what we're going to look at. So we're going to start with this so-called great chapter. So let's have a look at what this has to say regarding the awakening of the Buddha. So this is how it goes. Soon after his awakening, the Buddha was staying at Uruvela on the bank of the river Niranjara at the foot of the Bodhi tree here. Yeah, the foot of the Bodhi tree here. Isn't that kind of cool? He was staying at the foot of the Bodhi tree. The Bodhi tree in Pali is called the Asatta. And it's only in the modern kind of language it's called the Bodhi tree. But that's how this actually, by the way, I forgot to say, very important, this is my translation. Right, this is kind of... So it's nice when you're going to present some sutta. It's always nice to have some of your own translations as well, because this is from the Vinaya Pitaka. This is actually what I have done. So the Bodhi tree is, in Latin, is called the Ficus religiosa, the religious fig tree, quite literally. And in Pali is the awakening tree, the Bodhi tree. But the actual name in the Indian language is Asatta. Asatta is the proper name of the tree here. So this is Niranja. This is obviously today's Bodh Gaya. So if you go to Bodh Gaya, this is what you see. You can see the river there, the Niranjara. There isn't much of a river most of the year, but maybe during the rainy season there's a bit more. You can go there now and you can see all of these places. I think it looks a little bit different now from what it did at the time of the Buddha. If you go there now, it's often very noisy, lots of people, lots of things happening. And time of the Buddha, it was very secluded. There was nothing going on there. There was this nice little grove. The Buddha was sitting down, nothing going on. Now you have to line up, you have to go through security, you have to have screened your baggage. I wonder what the Buddha would say about today's Bodh Gaya. He'd probably say, go somewhere else, for goodness sake. Don't go to Bodh Gaya, it's too noisy in Bodh Gaya. That's what I think he might say. It was interesting because we were at Bodh Gaya very recently. And while we were there, and some of you were there as well, and it was a very nice trip. I thought we did some things that most people never get to do, and that's because I tend to not to listen to so much to the tour guide. A tour guide says, do A. I say, no, let's not do A, let's do B instead. And the tour guide always says, yes, sir, okay, whatever you want, we'll do that. It's kind of very nice, to be a monk. People just do whatever you want. Okay, good, we'll do that. So it's hard to be careful not to get too bossy when you're a monk. So, but anyway, we were also at Bodh Gaya, so we went to many interesting places. But one of the things I remember from Bodh Gaya, I was standing in line, and there's all these Tibetan monks there, because they live in India and they go to Bodh Gaya and stay there for many weeks of the year, very often. And so I went there first thing in the morning. I thought I'd get the best spot right under the Bodhi tree. So I kind of rushed there first thing in the morning. But already, even before they open, there's already a queue lining up, and all these Tibetan monks there. And so the first day I went in there, there's a lot of pushing and shoving. They really I don't think they're unfriendly, it's just their culture, a lot of pushing and shoving, you kind of go this or that way. And so the first day I was kind of pushed and shoved around. I didn't know what to do, what is the right appropriate conduct. But the second day I went even earlier, I got very towards the front, and I decided I am not going to be pushed around. Today I am going to push my way through. I'm going to be I'm just going to be just like, not with kind of harsh, just with a sense of compassion towards everyone. Pushing with compassion. And so I went to the front, and there was this Tibetan monk next to me, and soon enough the pushing and shoving started, and when I felt pushed, I pushed back, right? I really went for it. And when I pushed back, I just felt this enormous push from this Tibetan monk next to me. I was wondering, what is going on? This is like really over the top. It's like really pushing you. And so I didn't know whether he was kind of upset or what was going on. So I turned to him and looked at him, because he was pushing me so hard. And when I looked at him, he had this big smile on his face. It was kind of really nice. And I realized for him it was just having a bit of fun, pushing back and forth, a big smile on his face. And so I kind of patted him on the back, and kind of said, okay, that's very nice. So that was kind of very interesting. This is what happens in Bodh Gaya in the present day. But in those days, no pushing and shoving. It was very very nice and peaceful. Anyway, that's kind of a bit of a random story, got nothing to do with what we're talking about. But anyway, that's just that's what happens. So the Buddha was on the bank of the Narendra, sit at the foot of the Bodhi tree. There the Buddha sat cross-legged for 7 days without moving, experiencing the bliss of freedom. So we are talking about freedom. This is the bliss of freedom. Vimutti sukha is the Pali word. He was sitting for 7 days cross-legged without moving. Anyone here who can do that? It's quite hard, And when you sit for 7 days cross-legged, usually it means there's a very profound state of samadhi. This could be maybe something like the Sanya Vedaita Nirodha, also called the Nirodha Samapatti, which is the deepest kind of samatha meditation you can have, where everything basically comes to a stop. That usually lasts for 7 days. So something like that we're talking about here. There are other names for these things as well. Some people called it the Arhatapala Samapatti, but whatever it is, it's obviously a profound state of samadhi. So 7 days experiencing the bliss of freedom. This is what happens when you have this profound sense of giving up everything. This is the idea. So and that's kind of fascinating. How can you sit 7 days completely still? And the reason is because there is no sense of wanting anything else. You are perfectly contented with what you're doing. There's no movement. There is no drive to do anything. There's a feeling that this is all you want to do. And this is one of those strange things about the samadhi experience. We're going to talk about samadhi later on. But when you get to a state of samadhi, samadhi is the deep meditation on the Buddhist path, there is a sense that you have found the meaning of life itself. The meaning of life means that there is nowhere else to go. There's no more craving, there's no more drive, there's nothing more that needs to be done. The only way you can have no more craving or desire is because you have found meaning right here, right now. When you have found the full meaning, well then what are you going to do? There's nowhere else to go, and so you're perfectly content to what you're doing. And so this is the liberation of the Buddha here, the sense of final meaning, final purpose, having found the goal, the purpose of life itself. There's nothing more to do. And then you can sit for 7 days just experiencing bliss without doing anything else. And that's kind of extraordinary. Yeah, you don't have to force yourself. In fact, this is all you want to do. Any kind of force, any kind of doing is just dukkha for someone like the Buddha. And so you're more than happy just to sit blissfully like this. So why didn't the Buddha just continue experiencing bliss? Because he was urged to compassion. This is another story that is found elsewhere. I haven't included that here. But he was urged to have compassion for living beings by Brahma Sahampati, that famous story of when the Buddha starts his teaching career. But here, if it had been up to the Buddha, he'd probably just sitting, experiencing the bliss of freedom until he died, and that would have been it, and you never heard about him. Yeah, he wouldn't be the Buddha, he would just kind of pass away. That would be the end of that. But fortunately for us, he decided to do some teaching. So this is the bliss of freedom. This is what happens when you find the highest kind of freedom. All you want to do is you don't want to do anything at all. You just want to sit perfectly still, close your eyes, and enter these profound states. But it has a consequence. The idea of awakening has a consequence. That insight means that you understand the world, obviously in the most profound way possible. By world, I mean the mind. The human mind is essentially equivalent to the world, because that's where we experience the world, in the human mind. And so you have that experience, and then from that experiencing bliss of freedom, the next step is then to articulate, to express what that means, that insight that you had under the Bodhi tree. So this is the next thing, coming out of that bliss of freedom. Then, in the first part of the night, the Buddha reflected on dependent origination in forward and reverse order. Dependent origination, paticca samuppada, is like the summary of what the Buddha realized under the Bodhi tree. This is what he understood, dependent origination. The connection between craving and rebirth is the core of dependent origination, is the connection between craving and rebirth. The fact that craving leads to continued existence on and on and on. And dependent origination is like a detailed explanation of how that process happens, from craving leading to rebirth, taking all these other factors into account. So this is really the Buddha's discovery. When you look at the Four Noble Truths, Noble Truth number 2 and 3, they are about dependent origination. The number 2 is about the rising of dukkha, which is dependent origination in the forward order. And then the third one, the cessation of suffering, is the cessation version of dependent origination, where each factor ceases after the other. So this is the Buddha's discovery. And then on top of that comes the path, which is the fourth Noble Truth. And the first one just describes the problem. That's the problem. And then you have the discovery. And then you have the path, which is also understood as part of this whole insight on that night. So this is what the Buddha discovered. And then, of course, the sutta goes through all the factors of dependent origination. I'm not going to do that now, because this is not a workshop on dependent origination. This is on vimutti, so we're going to leave that out. But we're going to look at some of the verses that the Buddha spoke after going through dependent origination. So seeing the significance of this, the Buddha uttered a heartfelt exclamation. Heartfelt exclamation is the udana. Udanang udanesi. Udana is often translated as an inspired utterance, but I kind of like the idea of heartfelt exclamation. And so he gives this a heartfelt exclamation, seeing the significance of this. When things become clear to the energetic Brahmin who practices absorption, then all his doubts are dispelled, since he understands the natural order and its conditions. So this is the Buddha talking about his own experience. When things become clear, this is the understanding of dependent origination. First of all, the actual insight, and then the articulation of that insight through the 12 links, or through the 12 factors. And you will notice, very important here, who is it that gets this clarity? It is the Brahmin. But the Buddha is not the Brahmin. So what does it talk about Brahmin here? Well, Brahmin is this idea of the highest kind of spiritual person. He uses this vocabulary in a new way. The Brahmins are usually the highest caste in India, but here it means like the highest spiritual attainer. It doesn't mean the Buddha is a Brahmin. It just means that the Buddha is like the height of spiritual insight. Energetic. Very important word here. The idea that you have to have energy to have success on the path. Energy is one of those qualities of Dhamma when it is practiced in the right way. Energy comes often from being inspired. Inspired comes from understanding the Dhamma in the right way. So it comes from that understanding is really right view. So this is one of the reasons why we do these workshops or kind of sutta retreats, is to kind of gain more of this right view, more of this ability to see things in the right way, then gain some inspiration hopefully, then comes the energy from that, and then from that energy comes the practice of the Dhamma. So you can see how things develop in this way. So the energetic Brahmin who does what? Practices absorption, jhana. So again, the clarity, the understanding of the insight that the Buddha has comes from this energetic person who practices jhanas. These are, as you find again and again in the suttas, this is the foundation for the insight into reality in the deepest way. So it's everywhere in the suttas. You can't really avoid that when you start reading. This is one of the great things about reading the suttas. You see, simple things like that are very obvious sometimes. These are kind of the low-hanging fruits of understanding the suttas. Then all his doubts are dispelled. Why are they dispelled? Well, because you understand. What is that you understand? You understand the natural order and its conditions. Sahetu Dhamma. Sahetu. Hetu is like the roots or the causes. Hetu often means like a cause. And Dhamma here is like the nature, the way, the lawfulness of the world, the way the world works. So you understand how the world works, the Dhamma, and you understand the causes that kind of make the world the way it is. So you understand the Sahetu Dhamma. And this is dependent origination. Dependent origination is the understanding of the world together with its causes. Why? Well, because you may think that dependent origination explains dukkha, so what has that got to do with the world? Well, that is the world. The world is dukkha. That's just kind of the weird thing here. There isn't really any difference between the world and dukkha. Why is that? Because our experience, that is the world. There isn't really any world apart from our experience. And that experience is also dukkha. And so in a sense you can say the world and the dukkha is the same thing. And so when you understand the nature, the world, and you understand its condition, then dependent origination is that understanding basically of everything. Everything comes within the scope of paticca samuppada. It's very profound. Once you start to see things from the Buddhist point of view, it kind of... It's a different way of thinking about the world, because in Buddhism the mind is always primary, and then you see how all of these things kind of fit together. So this is how then freedom comes about. Freedom comes about by practicing absorption, being energetic, and then having this insight into the nature of the world itself, which is equivalent to your mind, which is equivalent to dukkha, which is basically equivalent to everything really. And this is how this whole thing kind of comes together. It's kind of interesting, isn't it? It's kind of extraordinary. You become this is kind of, this is kind of the dream of every scientist, is to kind of understand the world properly. But the way that you go about understanding the world from a Buddhist point of view is very different from the way of science. This is how you kind of do that. So, anyway, so this is the Buddha's heartfelt utterance or exclamation on this at this point. Then let's kind of move on to the next one. That's only the first part of the night. Yeah, in the middle part of the night, the Buddha again reflected on dependent origination in forward and reverse order. So same reflection, and now he has a different verse. Seeing the significance of this, the Buddha uttered a heartfelt exclamation. When things become clear to the energetic Brahmin who practices absorption, then all his doubts are dispelled, since he has understood the end of the conditions. So in the previous one, he had understood the Dhamma together with its conditions. What is it that gives rise to the world? What is it that gives rise to dukkha? What is it that gives rise to existence? All of these things. But the corollary of that, the corollary, that what goes together with that, if you like, is that you understand that if those conditions come to an end, well then the world comes to an end, dukkha comes to an end, future lives come to an end. Yeah, this is the kind of this goes together. These are not separate things. So once you understand the forward movement and causes, you also understand the cessation movement, and this is that cessation aspect of dependent origination. Always these things have to go together. So you understand the end. This is the second noble truth. The other one was this is the third noble truth. The previous one was the first noble truth, second noble truth. This one is the third noble truth. Yeah, and of course the first one is like the insight into dukkha itself. So this is the true liberation and freedom on the path. In the last part of the night, the Buddha again reflected on dependent origination in forward and reverse order. And again it repeats all the links. And then the Buddha's verse, seeing the significance of this, the Buddha uttered a heartfelt exclamation. When things become clear to the energetic Brahmin who practices absorption, he defeats the army of the Lord of Death, like the sun beaming in the sky. Isn't that nice? I love that. This is so beautiful. Yeah, the Buddha is like the sun beaming in the sky. It's like when you are encompassed by Mara. Mara here is the Lord of Death is Mara. This is my translation of Mara. Mara makes everything diffuse, like a curtain. There's a veil on the world. There's a darkness in the world. You cannot see clearly what is going on. Mara obscures everything. Kind of makes everything, takes the light away, so you cannot see clearly. It's like you're missing the ability to understand what is going on. And then you draw back the veil, you draw back the curtain, you allow the light to come in. And when you allow the light to come in, it's like the sun beaming in the sky. This is the idea of the mind that draws away the veil from the world, takes away the obscurity and allows the light to come in. The Buddha is like this beaming light in the world, the mind of the Buddha, when he sees clearly what is going on. And this is why very often when we talk about the path of Buddhism, very often the metaphor of light is a very common thing. We talk about just in this ordinary meditation practice the idea of nimittas, nimitta being the light in the mind. We talk about the aloka and aloka sanya. We talk about the pabbasara citta. Pabbasara is again means like the brightness and the glowing mind. Pabbasara. What is that? It is just the mind in samadhi. We talk about pabba, another word for light. There are so many words for light. Obasa is another word you find. And all of these words are words that show that it is the brightness of the mind is what we can expect when we practice this path. And the final thing that happens when you finally dispel Mara and his army, he defeats the army of the Lord of Death. Mara means like death. Mara is related to the word marana, and so that's why Lord of Death is kind of a nice translation of Mara. Then everything kind of becomes beaming as a consequence. I love this words. I find it really nice. So like a sun beaming in the sky. So that is the account with the Bodhi tree. It is comes to an end at this point. So let us follow the schedule and let's do just a 5-minute meditation or 5-minute break, and then we will carry on afterwards.
Good morning, Bhante.
Good morning, yeah.
So regarding Bodhgaya, the place is very, very noisy, every time visitors go there. I think it's quite against the Buddha's teaching, I mean, you're supposed to go there to contemplate, to reflect, and sit quietly in meditation, reflecting what he had been teaching. But I see different Buddhist groups using their loudspeakers, like chanting and all these things. So it's not exactly what the Buddha has taught, What's your thoughts about that?
I tend to agree with you. People have very different reactions when they go to Bodh Gaya. It is possible. Some people, they can tune out a lot of the noise and just feel the atmosphere at a deeper level, and they can still get some joy and happiness by going there. But I think basically you're right. I don't think the Buddha necessarily would have recommended it anymore to go there, to be honest with you. If he had known what it is like now, I think he may have said go somewhere else. Yeah, go to Jhana Grove maybe. I don't know what he would have said. It's very hard to know. And this is one of the reasons when I went to India recently. We went to some of the other places, and some very nice places that we went to. We went to a place called Gurpa. Have you been to Gurpa? Next time we go to Gurpa. So Gurpa is a place that was called the Kukutapadagiri at the time of the Buddha. Kukuta is like a rooster. Kukutapada is the foot, Giri is hill. So it's the rooster foot hill. And it's very famous for this is a place where Mahākhandhaka is supposed to have attained his parinibbana. He lived on this mountain apparently. And you travel through through this area, the Magadhan area. This is in Bihar now, southern part of Bihar. And suddenly you get to this hill. This is the largest hill in that area. It kind of rises out of nowhere, yeah? And so you walk up this hill. It's very, very steep. So we went there. We walk up this hill. And then you walk through this narrow passageway between two enormous rocks. It's like this. You can barely squeeze through. If you're a little bit too fat, you can't get through. So I said to Ajahn Brahm, you can't go here. You have to stay back. This is not for you. I was being naughty. One of the jobs of being a disciple is to be naughty with your kind of master. So we are naughty. Just messing around with each other. So anyway, it's a kind of narrow passageway. It's kind of extraordinary. And they have put steps in there now. And this goes for about 50 meters inside the rock. It's a long way through the rock. It's really extraordinary. And eventually you get to the top. And it's about, how high? A couple of 100 meters above sea level, above the land. So quite high up. Yeah, and you can sometimes you see the birds and the eagles and things up there. That was quite nice. But even that wasn't really as good as it should be, because even there were people. There's people everywhere. And then we went to another place. The most desolate place we went to was a place called the Indasala Guha. Indasala Guha is a cave. Indasala is like the Inda is the lord of the gods. That's Sakka, and Sala is like a house or a building. So this is like the cave in Sakka's house cave or something like that. And that was very, very interesting. And that was to get there. We kind of, first of all, I asked the tour guide, "Can we go to Indasala Guha?" And they said, "Where is that?" They didn't even know where it was. And so they made a few phone calls, and okay, now we know where it is. And so they got some local guides. Yeah, they weren't local enough. Got some local guides to take you there. So first of all, we went in tuk-tuks, and boom, 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 kind of very kind of bumpy roads. And eventually we got to the end of the tuk-tuks. All the tuk-tuks kind of parked, yeah. And then we walked on this path, and the path got more and more narrow, smaller and smaller and smaller, until it was like a cliff, yeah. You're kind of holding onto the cliff, and the water was on one side. And some of the people were really frightened. They were really, really frightened, some of the people. So they almost had to stop and go back. It wasn't very dangerous because there was just water there. But anyway, it was very steep. You had to kind of hold on to this cliff. And then after holding onto the cliff, you kind of walked over a dam wall and then up a hillside. And then the last part up the hillside was almost like a sheer drop of 2 meters. You had to kind of climb up, and the tour guide will hold you from above while you clung onto the rocks, yeah? And then you got into this cave eventually. And it was very nice, and it was very adventurous. And I was very impressed by, the people from here, from KL, who were there, and the Singaporeans too, and some of them went all the way. I thought, these city dwellers, and how were they gonna do this, right? But no, actually they were pretty adventurous, and I was really, really impressed with all of those who came with us, and I thought that was really, really nice when you did that, and you did that adventure. And so eventually you got into this cave, and this was apparently the Buddha was supposed to have stayed here, and this is a place there was nobody else except for us. There was a few flags in the cave, Buddhist flags and things. That was obviously used as a pilgrimage site. And then when you went into the cave and you looked out from the cave, all you could see was like hills, rocks, a little bit of water in front of us. There was nothing, really, really barren. Yeah, very, very barren, very rough kind of area. I have no idea how the Buddha would have got into this cave, what he would have done. It was kind of extraordinary. I don't think he would have stayed there very long. It would have been a long way to go for alms. Yeah, I don't know where the nearest alms resort was, several kilometers away or something. This is really, really far away. And at the very back of the cave, there was another smaller cave opening up, full of bats. And I said, wow, Ajahn Brahm would love this. Yeah, the smell of bat poo is kind of Ajahn Brahm's favorite smell. One of the monks tried to import bat poo from Thailand into Australia. Yeah, but it was so difficult because you're not supposed to bring any organic matter into Australia, because it was going to he built Ajahn Brahm's cave and then he was going to smear it with bat poo afterwards. But it didn't work out. Anyway, so that was actually quite an experience, to go to this Indasala Gua. That was really far away and kind of cool. So anyway, so sometimes you're right, you have to go to some of those places that are a bit different. One of the places I really recommend to go, which was very good on this trip also, is to go to the Vulture Peak, the Gidjakuta in Rajagaha. That's very peaceful. We went there early in the morning before sunrise, and you go there meditate, and you meditate, kind of when the sun comes up, and it's very, very peaceful actually. But even there was a couple of people sort of preparing the shrine and things for us. There's always people everywhere. Everyone is desperate. A lot of poor people there, so they're desperate for some donations and things. So you have to know where to go, and then you can find some nice places there and still be quite inspired. It's kind of awesome when you go to a place and you know that the Buddha was here. One of the really important things is to think about it in the right way when you're there, yeah? The Buddha was here. The Buddha was here? Are you sure? Wow, the Buddha was here. This is the way it was. This is the Gidjakuta. This is the Vulture Peak. You can see the signs. This is the mountains. You can recognize it from the suttas. The Buddha really was here. He was sitting here. Wow. This is kind of extraordinary, because you are in the same place where the greatest spiritual master in the history of humanity was. You are in the same place, sitting maybe where he sat. And when you go on this pilgrimage, there's many places like this, but especially those places where the atmosphere is quite right, the atmosphere is peaceful, the atmosphere has those right qualities, it becomes very tangible, and you kind of get into this kind of mood, mode of kind of thinking about the Dhamma and the Buddha in the right way. So that is what you find there in the Gidjakuta. And there are number of places like this where you really feel that you are walking in the Buddha's footsteps. I remember one of the things I was telling, I've told a bit about this story in a number of places, but one of the places this was where the Buddha passed away, Kushinara. And at some point I decided to go a little bit out of my own, because I was kind of fed up with too many people everywhere, so I just walked away. And if someone wanted to follow me, I said, no, enough, okay, go back, I'm going by myself now. Sometimes it's nice just to be by yourself, So I walked, and I got there was a river there, just behind kind of the village, Kushinara. So I walked along the river bank, And there was nobody there. It was completely deserted, no one around. Yes, I walked along this bank. I walked maybe for a kilometer or so along the river, and then I came to a road with a bridge. And I kind of walked up on the bridge and I had a look at the sign. What does it say? Niranjara River. Not Niranjara River. Hiranyavati River. I'm in the wrong place now. Hiranyavati River. And Niranjana is where he got awakened. Hiranyavati is where he passed away. And that is exactly what it is called in the sutta. It's called the Hiranyavati River. The Buddha came there, he walked to this river, he crossed it, and he walked another couple of kilometers. He got to the twin sal trees, which is where he passed away. And so there you can see the sign. I was outside of the tourist area. This was a proper sign on a real road crossing that river. And so I knew this is where the Buddha was. I kind of looked somewhere along here. He would have crossed this river. It's like you're walking into the suttas almost. You're walking into what we are reading now. It becomes real in a very powerful way. This is what I mean. The Buddha really was here. You read the suttas, okay, is it a fairy tale? Is it real? Now it is real. This is kind of how you gain some inspiration out of this. And so I think it's all good to go to India at least once in a lifetime if we have an opportunity, but come with someone who can take you a little bit outside of the ordinary places, yeah? Someone a bit cheeky. You need someone like me to kind of speak to the tour guides in the right kind of way, and then you have some more fun. Leading you astray, that's what new word is saying. Yeah, sometimes I did feel I was leading people astray a little bit. I have to admit, I didn't really know what I was doing. It was kind of a bit dangerous, maybe. I don't know. It was good fun. I think no one died, so it's good. Lucky. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yes. So. Anything else, anyone? Yeah? We have one over there.
Morning, Ajahn.
Good morning.
Morning, fellas, Sutta learners. Okay, just now Ajahn has explained the Sutta, and at the end we have a 5-minute meditation.
Yeah.
I'm just not very sure what I'm supposed to do within the 5 minutes. Is it to meditate? When you say meditate, does it mean that we meditate on what Ajahn has said? For example, just now the light, the sun beaming in the sky. So maybe we reflect on some past experience where we have a situation where we were a bit unclear, blur, and trying to find solution, and then or trying to understand somebody why he act that way, and suddenly we felt, I mean at that we finally find the solution. Oh, it is because of like this, he behaved like this, and become clear. Are we supposed to reflect in this way?
Yeah, you can do whatever you want basically in those 5 minutes. Those 5 minutes are there just to have a toilet break if you want, to stretch your legs if you want, just to relax, have a snooze if you want. Yeah, you can snore a little bit, that's okay if you want to do that. You can do some, when I say meditation, it just means, because it's only 5 minutes, you can't do very much. So just sit back and relax for 5 minutes. Allow it to sink in. Sometimes you need to allow things to sink in a little bit, so don't try to think too hard. But by allowing it to sink in, you gain a deeper understanding anyway. So whatever, these are just meant to give people 5-minute break every half an hour, so we don't have too much information, too kind of overload of what we're doing here. That's basically the idea. So just sit back, relax, sit peacefully for a while, and just don't do very much at all. That's what I recommend. Yeah. Venerable, please.
And about Bodhikaya, in the back, if you walk toward the bathroom, there's a park. There's a park there. It's it's very green and with a tree, and you can go there to meditate. But you have to pay like 20 rupees or something. So it's very quiet back there. So next time, if you want to go to meditate, if you don't want around, the Bodhi tree around the temple, you walk toward the bathroom, and in the back there's a gate, and you pay, I think they charge 20 rupees to go in the park, and it's very quiet, very green and cool. There's some people, they go there and stay there from morning till they close in the evening. It's very, very nice park there, so next time you can try.